something, you should learn how to do it on one foot so you didn't take too long. I'd like to know that I can stand like this all day. One thing I'd like to just begin with is just a debt to the conference interview committee that suggested that I be ordained, and Dee McEachran was the head of that chair. And one of the things that they noted in their recommendations, that I was something of a maverick. And those of you who have a rural background know that a maverick is that cow who cannot follow the herd, but always wanders off in different kinds of directions. And that was just a gift to me, and the folks who ordained me decided that that might also be a gift to the Church of Canada. So, from a maverick's point of view, I'm going to start with a text. Day after day alone on the hill, the man with 1,000 voices keeping perfectly still. No one seems to like him. They know what he wants to do. But the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spin around, and that's where the chorus goes. I would like to begin with one short story. This happened at Knox United Church in Vancouver, where Joan McMurtry was the pastor. Knox is where Barbara and I attended when I was in the seminary. She was working at the University of British Columbia as a professor in the Faculty of Nursing. It was a delight to work with Joan McMurtry, and at this point, I just would like to acknowledge she's been one of the primary mentors in my experience along the path of ministry. One Sunday morning, just about before it was time for me to be ordained, she asked me if I'd come to the front of the church so we could acknowledge that I'd been there and that I was moving on. She said a few words, and then the door at the back of the church opened, and about 40 kids came in. And it blessed the socks off me because every one of those kids had a clown nose on. You see, these folks recognized that I was the fool on the hill. But the best part of that is the kids gathered around me. And while Joan said some words, those kids all laid hands on me, and they gave me a blessing. And to this day, that blessing is as strong for me in terms of my ministry as the ordination of the church. That is to say, I have managed somehow to break through to the imaginations of persons who often get lost in church stuff. Being a fool is a very helpful thing in ministry, not being afraid to be embarrassed. Now, Joan did another thing for me, and this was at the end of a Presbytry meeting in Vancouver South. And after the meeting, Joan got me in a corner and very quietly said, "George, you've got some very important things to say for the church. The problem is they can't hear you because of the way in which you're saying them." And Joan and I discussed that, and I realized that having grown up as an immigrant child, having grown up on social services, having grown up as a dropout in high school, having been labeled as a failure, I have a lot of resentment against the society in which I live. But from that point, I began to work on my anger. And I am at the point in my life now, just when I'm going to retire, sorry church, the anger seems to be just about eclipsed by something new. And that something new I would identify as learning how to be truthful while being kind. And that's an art that I think I've made some progress with. Now, while after ordination, I was settled in Steinbach, and we were there for 3 years. But Barbara had to give up her position at the University of British Columbia, and she was without work for those 3 years. And during those 3 years, she negotiated with the University of British Columbia to return. So after 3 years with Steinbach, 3 very, very blessed years, a great place to start ministry. The congregation is so affirming, so supportive, so encouraging. But we went back to Vancouver, and I began to work with Grace Memorial United Church in East Vancouver. And I had been commissioned or ordained or appointed, whatever the right word is, to animate mission. And the first thing I began to do was to get involved with what was going on in the streets around the church. I got connected with all of the justice-seeking groups, the environmental, and all of the resistance folks in that part of the town. It was a delight to begin to realize that I was not alone in my hunger and thirst for justice in our Canadian economy, which is so affluent and which so many people suffer so much. One day I was walking on my daily round down Commercial Drive, and I had my clown nose in my pocket, and I stopped in at the cafe where I went just about every day, And at the cafe, the barista said to me, do you know that Gordon Campbell's coming to Britannia Park across the street? And I thought, oh my goodness, an opportunity for a fool. So I walked across the street, sized up the situation, and at a critical moment put my clown nose on and addressed the gathered people. And the gathered people were moms, often single moms, with kids, and they were there to protest the fact that Premier Campbell was coming for a photo opportunity regarding the privatization of their daycare centers, or something like that. Now, there was another group there, and they had been harassing Gordon Campbell for a long time. They were called the Anti-Poverty Group. And these folks were militant resistors seeking social justice. I didn't know this at the time, but Campbell had ordered the Vancouver Police Department to grab these boys at this event, and girls as well. Now, they had set this trap for the Anti-Poverty Committee, and George, with his clown nose, stepped on the thing that triggers the trap. I was grabbed by the police by both arms, I was handcuffed, I was dragged away, I was pressed against a wall, I was taken to a jail, I was strip searched, humiliated in every possible way. I spent almost 30 hours in jail. I was not allowed to call anybody, I was not allowed to talk to anybody, and I was constantly harassed by the police. This is something that most Canadian citizens don't know. And when they speak kind of easily about what a wonderful, free country this is, they need to know that what happened to me that day happens to young men, Indigenous men, and they get abused by the police on a regular basis. And I have a theory that if you abuse somebody once, they're going to be mad. If you abuse them twice, they're going to get really mad. And if you abuse them 3 times, they're probably going to become dangerous to our society. Now, I ended up in trial. I ended up testifying before a judge. And in my testimony, I said 2 things. One, I said that Socrates had been on trial for seeking justice in ancient Greece. And Socrates had said to the judge, I don't know the language of your court, so I'm just going to try to tell you the truth as well as I am able. And the second thing I said to the judge was, Jesus said that when you are drawn before the magistrates, and Jesus did say if we were faithful in following his way, we might get dragged before the magistrates. I said, if you are dragged before the magistrates, don't be concerned what you shall say. The Spirit will give you utterance in that same moment. So I said to the judge, I'm just going to try to tell you the truth. You decide if I'm guilty or not. I was charged with 5 counts, which are totally incongruous with who I am as a human being. I was charged with assaulting 2 police officers, uttering profanity, starting a riot, and being a public nuisance. I won't go too far with that, but this event became news. It was national news. My mom and dad called me one day, did we see you on TV? I said, yes, Mom, we did. But also it made me a person who in the resistance movement had credibility as a United Church minister. But more than as a United Church minister, it had given me credibility as somebody who bears witness to the hunger and thirst of Jesus Christ for justice. And one evening they had a special event called Everybody Loves a Clown. And it was a picture of me in handcuffs with my face pressed up against the stucco wall. And after that event, I got to play a song, and I played Bob Marley's song, Redemption Song, which I love to sing. But after that event, people began to talk about me. And what they said was remarkable how he was given a chance to speak, and he never said a word about his own concerns. What he said was how much he appreciated the work of this group, how much he appreciated the work of this group, and this group, and this group. See, one of my basic realizations is that in anything we undertake as followers of Jesus, we are never doing it alone. It's always one person doing this, one person doing that, one person doing that, and all of it together being significant in the hope for change. Now, that's one of my stories from the time at Grace Memorial. The other story happened at Grace Memorial, and that was when the Olympics were coming to Winnipeg. They sent a committee to Vancouver. They sent a committee to check out the city to see if it was deserving of an Olympic event. And what happened was that the police in Vancouver took all of the folks on East Hastings in that area by Main Street, and they drove them out of the downtown because they were to clean the place up. Well, this happened just after Easter when we had initiated a hospitality program. We were going to have coffee on, we were going to have cookies on, we were going to have all kinds of things for the neighborhood. The neighbors didn't show up. But guess who did show up? Survival sex workers addicted to crack cocaine and all the hangers-on that belong with that community. We began to feed them porridge in the morning. We began to feed them soup at night. We got connected with various agencies, the Center for Disease Control, the Street Nurse Program, DAES, Downtown East Side Youth Advocacy Services, PACE, Prostitution, Advocacy, and Education. We worked to try to establish some self-esteem in these broken human beings. And this is the saddest thing that I have to say about my experience with the United Church. Because the neighbors of the church began to complain about the garbage that we were allowing on our property. The gay neighbors began to graffiti the church. Get this junk out of our neighborhood. One man came by on a regular basis just so his dog could poop on our lawn. We were resistant. And they began to complain to the church. The police were there on a regular basis. The police respected the sanctuary of the church. They never acted against these people until one day where 3 members of the executive of South Vancouver Presbytry came with 5 police officers and a garbage truck. And they took about a dozen young, broken human beings, and they drove them away from the church. They gathered all their belongings, threw it in the garbage truck, and they told me that I was no longer allowed to work in the church. They took my keys and they issued a 363. And that 363 was never executed. And again, with Joan McMurtry, Joan and I developed a plan where we could let Presbytry off the hook. Because Presbytry was afraid. Because George had a good reputation with the congregations and the people of the church, even though he did not have a very good relationship with the Presbytry. That sometimes is the cost of being justice-seeking. But it broke my heart that the United Church, which stands on ground which it claims to be prophetic and justice-seeking, in this critical moment would choose to placate the neighbors rather than defend the rights of these human beings, treating them. And this is exactly the time when Robert Picton was scooping girls up off the street and butchering them. This is a sad story. But the good thing of it is, it inspired people in the neighborhood. Grace Memorial right now has been animated. Grace Memorial has been going for 10 years. They've converted their basement into a second-hand store. They've converted their upstairs into a common space. They have coffee houses. They have music nights. They have counseling services available. They have a weekly food program. And this is all done by volunteers drawn to the church by this passionate event that happened. Now, I have lots and lots of stories, because in every city, I have always gotten connected with the resistance movement. And I would love to tell those stories, but I don't want to take up a lot of your time. The thing that I would like to leave you with is another text. And this is a text from the Moody Blues. When all the stars are falling down, in the sea and on the ground, and angry voices carry on the wind, a beam of light will fill your head, and you'll remember what's been said by all the good folk this world's ever known. I'm a melancholy man, that's what I am. But I think I understand that we're going to keep growing. Wait and see. I trust that that's your vision, that we're going to keep growing. Let's wait and see. Thank you for your hospitality. And